Hare Krishna, once again, beautiful people of the world. This is the Soul Ashraya podcast, where we will seek the shelter of our dear Lord Krishna through prayer, shastra, and conversation. I am your host, Bhakta Jake. I am currently on the road, staying in a different place, and I am joined by my friend and teacher, Balaram Shakti Das, who is coming in live from beautiful, scenic Tucson, Arizona. There's actually a picture of it right behind me, right there. That's what Arizona looks like right there. That's it. That's like a wall. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Amazing. So
Do you think there's that much humidity
are...
in your state?
It's Arizona's pretty close to the Blue Ridge Mountains, isn't it?
No.
No. Okay. All right. I gotta joke around a little bit because you know, we gotta lighten up the mood as we're going into the show here. I am on the road. I am out of town working, but we wanted to try to do the show for the beautiful people of the world. In the show, we will cover the Krishna book here on the Solar Shraya podcast. That's what we do. And so we've been kind of off and on with our shows lately. We are still in chapter 2, and I hate to admit it to all you beautiful people, but Dr. Jake forgot to bring his laptop and his Krishna book. But luckily, Balaram Shakti Das has his Krishna book, and I have my
Yes. What we're reading from.
Yes, and I have my phone, so I can at least read it. I haven't figured out like how to navigate Zoom to allow me to screen share because they make it a little more complicated than it needs to be. But anyway, we're here, we're doing the show, and we are live. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching us on YouTube, and thank you for just checking this out. Balaram, where did we leave off? Oh, so long ago.
Yeah, we left off with the markings on the lotus feet of Krishna.
That is where we left off, isn't it? I do remember that we kind of wanted to like stick a pin in that and come back to that because I had never even heard of said markings. So what exactly what is going on with these markings? There are actual markings on the Lord's feet, and they are all representing something.
Yeah. Hold on. I just wanted to see if I could find yeah. So I'm pulling up the ISKCONDesiretree.com. Mm-hmm. Pretty amazing website. Just full of resources for devotees. So there is a list here and a diagram and a lot of references here. Okay. Yeah, so we talked about like, I don't know if that'll stop me. Okay, there we go.
Oh yeah,
so
there you go.
There's 5 different pairs of feet there, and you can see there's different symbols on each one.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are of their lordships, Lord Nityananda, Lord Krishna, Radharani, and Lord Chaitanya as well. Doesn't look like actually Lord Chaitanya was in that group, but so these are yeah, we talked a little bit about how the soul finds refuge, right? Like this, what this show is about is soul ashraya, which means
Yeah.
refuge, shelter.
Yes.
And so the soul, its nature is it needs some kind of shelter. Like it is a spiritual spark, right? We are a spiritual spark surrounded in an ocean of energy. And everyone is trying to do different things with that energy according to their free will, right? Like you have the freedom, the prerogative, if you will, to explore that energy. And we all have different names for that. We all have different philosophies, just like how we ascribe meaning to that energy, how we even like create symbolic understandings of it, right? How like what is actually real. I think we touched on this before, like this idea, something like what does it mean? Like was it Plato who had the idea of like Plato's forms, right? So like when is it that an idea is a thing, is like a named thing? Because like you have like elephant is a name of an object. There's actually existing elephants. But like six-headed elephant is not like a real thing, right? Like you can give a name, like you can make up a word that would mean a six-headed elephant, but it wouldn't have any meaning because no such thing exists, right?
Yes.
And like this, like our language is meant to represent things that are real. And like, what's the point of naming something? So anyway, I remember in school, we talked about this concept. Do absolutes exist? Or like, are the names of things just as arbitrary as nonsensical things? Is that makes some kind of sense? Anyway, it's a little heady. We don't think about these things. We just kind of take for granted that this is a thing and this is not a thing. Well, what makes it not a thing? Like whose worldview determines that that's not a thing, right? So it's like, well, the subset or the set of symbols that I inherited when I grew up, that is what determines what's absolutely real. And then people with a little more culture, people with more culture means you're exposed to more symbols, more sets of meaning, more facets of reality, right? And it gives you more perspective on things. But there's this idea that a thing is only real in so far as it is consecrated, in a sense. It is given a place in the temple of God, which this universe is a temple of God. We also have small, relatively small buildings in our cities that are temples that have paraphernalia for worship of God. Then the Lord accepts them. That thing has a relationship with the absolute truth. Therefore, it is real, right? If you just like put together like this have phone and water bottle. This is now a phone bottle. And I'm going to say this is a real thing. I'm going to market this and I'm going to sell it to you. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to sell it.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Yes. Now we're talking. Yes. Check it out. It's the foam bottle.
The
And
phone bottle.
yeah, it's the foam bottle. Check it out. Oh, hello. Oh,
All
hold
your
on. I'm
needs.
on the phone. Hello? Yeah. No, no, just ran out. Sorry.
You need more minutes, you just put water in there.
Yeah. Uh-huh. No, he's not here.
All right, so what's going on with this? I just made up something that, okay, apparently this actually has value in society, so maybe it could stick. But it means there's meaning being ascribed to it for Jake. But the rest of society would be like, that's ridiculous. That's not a thing. You can't, we don't need that, you know. So in the same way, this world has been created. There's so many names and forms of this world, but this world is created as a reflection of the spiritual worlds. And so there is just as much, if not more, variegatedness of forms and like entities or things in the spiritual world. Difference is they are all conscious and they are all eternal. Whereas here, it is all inert matter with us living entities existing within that matter. And that is where life comes from. So this body that I'm inhabiting, the body itself is not living, the soul is living. And the soul then gives life to this, what otherwise is inert matter, right? So once the soul leaves the body, you know, could you say this is a hand if I'm dead? If I'm not in my body, is it a hand? Well, is it functioning as a hand functions when it has life in relation to the soul? That is the question. So when the soul is inhabiting the body, this is a hand, right? This is a book because the soul interacts with it as a book. As soon as I no longer interact with this as a book, you know, or this thing as a phone bottle, if I interact with it as a phone bottle, then for me, it's a phone bottle. But when I leave this world and like 100 years down the road, they don't use phone bottles anymore. So there's no such thing, right? So the point is, when things of this world are given life by the soul, it becomes something. You know, there's some meaning there. So anyway, that's pretty abstract, but the idea that I was wanting to get to is that the feet of Krishna, meaning Krishna himself, meaning the place where the soul finds Krishna, as at the feet of God. This is the position of the soul. When we're in this world, we're creating so many nonsense and some sense things, right? There's this, we're interacting with this world and we're dreaming up, concocting all these objects and naming them and giving them meaning, you know, and thinking that we have some kind of really tangible reality. And then someone else in another part of the world says, well, I have this idea and I have this God, right? And actually, I'm worshiping the one true God. And we say, no, well, that doesn't fit with our box. So that can't be real. Isn't it? Like, isn't that kind of what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's it. There's no foam bottles.
Yeah. So, so we're either like living in this world of the phone bottle of like the nonsense, or we're waking up to the eternal reality of God and his mercy, which is a universal thing and is there for every single soul. And there's a science to awakening to that mercy, right? To receiving that mercy. And that is the science of positioning yourself. It's actually, you are already positioned at the feet of God, but you have to consciously choose it because you have free will. And then those feet will manifest to you in so many ways, in accordance with the Lord's will for dispensing his mercy. Ultimately, in the ultimate issue, they manifest as these symbols and what these represent. Take a minute there. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can, if it has the meaning of them. There's conch shell, disc, lotus flower, elephant goad, thunderbolt, victory flag, umbrella, swastikas, an ostiga, an 8-sided shape, akash, meaning space, it's just 2 circles, unstrung bow, calf's hoof print, 4 water pots, a triangle, a half moon, and a fish. Now just tell me that doesn't make sense. Right? Any questions?
I mean, that is, oh, I as
It's
you
interesting.
know, as a newer devotee, some of those things do make sense to me. Like
Yeah,
the conch shell, the disc, even
yeah.
the fish. Like some of those things do make sense to me. Other symbols I haven't really got to yet. Like I haven't got to some of those things. But I'm sure I will at some point. Uh,
So there's another page that gives the meaning of them, and it just, I'm so sorry, our poor technology.
no.
This is not a white blank screen. Okay, there it is. Right, so like that, it just gives a little paragraph for each one. So the disc, uh the chakra, this is a weapon that the Lord uses. It's got like a flaming disc sort of thing
Yeah,
spinning. It
yeah.
just like
Shadu,
cuts down. Yeah, it's like a,
it's it's on the temple in Puri. That's the
yeah, yeah.
Sadhushan, it's called, right?
Sudarshan, yeah.
Yeah. Sudarshan. Yeah, that's what's on the top of the temple in Jagannath Puri, on that very, very auspicious temple there. That is the disc. It's just an amazing design. It's iconic. Even if you're not a devotee, it's such a cool thing to see. And that is actually like the disc that you see that Vishnu has in all the pictures. And
Mhm.
it's just in the pictures, it's, what is that? That's horizontal. On the temple, it's vertical. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm doing all kinds of things here. Check that out.
Yeah.
Speaking with my hands. Now, just
So
to let everyone know very
okay,
quickly, I
yeah.
do have my Bhagavad Gita. So I remembered my Gita, and also I do have the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which a very near and dear devotee has let me borrow. And I gotta tell you, this is pure nectar. And there's a picture in here that I'm probably gonna get a tattoo of, but we can talk about that later.
Wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, like just all all up my arm. I think I'm gonna get it. Just yeah, like all up, yeah, all up on my arm here and maybe over here. Yeah, it'll be a symbol. It'll be a real thing then, right? I mean, it is a real thing, but yeah, that's
If
kind of
it's in connection with the absolute truth, then by virtue of association, it becomes absolutely true. Yeah. So then it's like, yeah, that's God's energy, and his energy manifests as internal or external, depending on our relationship with it, as marginal. So the soul is marginal and it has a choice whether it wants to turn away from God and experience his energy as external to him, temporary, illusory, or turn back towards him and experience it as wondrous, as God's internal energy. Okay. Do you want to hear a few of the descriptions?
I actually do. I'm just I'm literally on the edge of my seat right now.
Okay. Okay. So the disc marks this cuts down the 6 enemies of the devotee: lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, and bewilderment. It indicates Teja Tattva. I've never heard of that Tattva. Teja, which like Tejas, it's like potency, like someone who has Tejas, like Brahma Tejas, is someone who, by their austerity, they become very powerful. Here it's saying Teja Tattva is the principle of brilliance by which the darkness of sin within is destroyed. Interesting.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, the chakra, it's this like flaming, brilliant disc, and it cuts down enemies.
Yeah.
So those enemies really, like when Krishna manifests, and as we'll read in this book, this weapon will come up and he cuts off their heads. When we're reading that, we're associating with Krishna's Leela, right? And we've discussed this before. We're associating with Krishna and his story. It is at the same time historical, allegorical, and spiritual. So it's occurring in a transcendental realm. It has occurred here in the past, and it is also occurring internally. So it's like we can associate with mundane stories, and those things is this like bothering the audio? It's like getting really
It kind
fuzzy.
of sounds, there's something, it kind of sounds like you have a pet squirrel chewing on the wire.
Not the squirrel, is the
I thought maybe you had one. Just like sitting there, getting out of some nuts right there. We'll interview him. We'll interview
You
him.
sent me this thing, and I'm starting to think it's not the best.
Oh, you got that little microphone.
It's the little microphone.
Yeah, maybe just tweak it down just a little bit, maybe.
Okay. So, what was I saying?
Not squirrels, but something else.
Yes, the internal squirrel of the pastimes. Purifying our heart, right? Yeah, so we can listen to so many squirrels. Actually, is a good thing because it is like a squirrel tangent, where we get distracted by something, and that'll leave an impression in our heart and on our mind, depending on the like magnitude of that experience. It'll go deeper into us and leave an impression, and it'll change our consciousness. It'll affect it in some way. So you can't say that that's not true with Krishna. The difference is it's not just allegorical, nor is it simply historical. It's also transcendental. So actually, Prabhupada explained that in the introduction. And so we did cover that. I'm remembering now. He's saying like, this is a good story to listen to. It's like the best thing that you could put in your ears, right? So the enemies. So there are these enemies because of our association and our exposure to negative elements in this world, right? In ignorance of the absolute ever-present nature of God, that God is in our heart. Actually, I was listening to my guru this morning. This was really nice. He was giving a class in Mayapur. He just arrived in Mayapur. So he was giving a Bhagavatam class for the Russian devotees. And it is just so beautiful, his point, because he's saying like, there's this big craze about loving yourself or like not doing enough self-care. And he's, like especially like yoga crowd people, they're really into that. And he's like, why do you need to love yourself more if the source of love, Krishna, loves you unlimitedly. Like, how could you feel that you're lacking something? So he's saying when we want to turn away from Krishna, we enter the material world where we're always needing more love to try to fill that gap. But if we turn to Krishna and his loving embrace by becoming Krishna conscious, then we'll always be full and we'll be able to give our love to Krishna and all of his energies, which includes all the living entities.
Yeah, I'd like to expand on that very quickly here. So I was actually talking about that earlier today, and so Krishna, one of the great things, there are many great things about Krishna, but one of the great things is he is like that parent who is just helping you along as a toddler when you're learning how to walk, and toddlers are taking their first steps and the parents are like, oh yeah, you can do it, you can do it, and just taking those small steps completely translates into our adult lives on a day-to-day basis as we're taking small steps towards the future, towards what we have to do, towards our work, our families, all of our responsibilities. Krishna is that parent. He's like the greatest parent. And he's like, yes, you can do it. You can take the small step. Oh, look at that. You just took a step and you fell down, but you can get back up again. Yay. Like, like that is literally like that is the way he loves us. And yes, like what more love do you need, you know? And so yeah, perfect analogy for the love of God. The love that God has for us is like that intense, where he's like that literally every single day of our lives, you know? It is literally step by step. So
And we're so like almost averse to knowing that, or to like experiencing that. We're so ignorant. We've turned so far away from that it's very difficult for us to feel that. We wake up and we feel, no, I'm actually alone in this world and I need to like get mine while the getting's good sort of thing. I need
yeah,
to think for myself. And so I do need to learn how to love myself. So maybe I'll buy some of these books, this self-help, whatever, and figure out how I can get more love for myself. Whereas like, no, the infinite source of love, the source of love himself loves you unlimitedly. It's like, if we could only become conscious of that, that's the good news.
yeah.
That's the
And
good news.
if we do become conscious of that, once we become conscious of that, I think that we as devotees, we're on the level where we have like a concept of self-realization. Now we know who we are, we know what's happening, we know the situation that we're in now. Now that you have the concept, you can help the world with your mercy, and now you can be that helpful voice to someone else.
Yeah.
Now you can go over to your workplace, your family, whatever your responsibilities are, once again,
Yeah.
and you can be like, oh man, that was great. Like, wow, you know you took out a piece of paper and you drew a picture. Oh, that, awesome. That's like a little miracle right there. It's like, as society, there's so much hate, greed, anxiety, all these negative things. Society, anxiety.
Those are the six enemies, right? Actually, that chakra has now manifested in your heart. You are becoming an instrument of the Lord.
I'm gonna get a tattoo of it on my heart right here, I think. This
Go for
is
it,
like a
man.
tattoo episode.
Okay.
That would be cool though. That would be a good place for
We're
it.
gonna we're gonna run through the whole list, and Jake's gonna tell us where he's gonna tattoo these symbols.
Tattoos all over my face by the end of it. Oh man, yeah. So that'll be fun. But yeah, like that's it. Those are the six things in society. And that's why people are like, that's why we live in a crazy world. And it is a crazy world. So so this is why. So yeah, I guess the that chakra is manifest in us as devotees now. So
Then the Padma goes along really nicely with that as well, because the Padma is expanding the sweet fragrance of the nectar that the devotees experience at the feet of God. It just devotees are described as like honeybees. They just like are maddened by the fragrance. It's like there's a sweetness, you know, when we're reading this book, when we're discussing Krishna Katha with devotees, you know, we're experiencing great pleasure. You know, why is that? You know, a nihilist or an impersonalist would say, oh, well, these are just, you know, concoctions of your mind, and you're ascribing your own meaning to them, and therefore you're experiencing pleasure, but it's all samsara. You know, in the end, everything is void, you know, and you have to actually stop interacting with others, because this experience of joy that you're having is actually just a projection of consciousness, which is just coming from interaction of insignificant, you know, atoms, and nothing, none of it is actually real. It's like,
well,
okay, that's a nice philosophy.
yeah, like what a way to live.
What a way
Like
to live.
how I mean, I can understand, people like obviously in the punk scene, there's like a whole nihilist punk thing. It's like its own genre, right?
Well, there's a um what's the word? There's a validity to some of it, in the to the sense of they're not wrong, that most like society is basically a big illusion, and it's right. It's just they
Sure.
don't know the other half of, you know, the story of
Right,
the absolute reality.
right. The uh the sheer amount of like I don't know, for I guess I can speak to this because I have walked down that road, in my earlier days, obviously punk rock and all that. But just the amount of abuse that you have to that someone I truly think it's abuse. Someone did something so horrible to you, like you were a child and you were just so horribly abused that why would you believe
Yeah,
in anything? You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
when you can't find answers anywhere, you know, of course you're not going to believe in anything. I mean, the teachers at school, if you go to school, aren't going to tell you
Nobody's
about
delivering
no
anything
one.
of substance, you know, real substance to you. So yeah, you're perfectly justified in rejecting the world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Sad.
underneath all of that, there is a sweetness. And I think most of those people would admit it's like the villain in a good plot, like a good story, the villain is always redeemable. He has always had some touch with the sweetness of life. And it just takes a certain kind of development for him to kind of come back in touch with that, right? In a grounded way.
A
And then
perfect,
resolve. Yeah.
absolutely perfect. I mean, the just looking at your necklace there reminds me of Prahlad. And in that story, what does Prahlad do at the very end? He asks the Lord to redeem his father, Hiranyakashipu. He prays to the Lord and asks, the dude abused Prahlad, right? And at the very end of it, he says, dear Lord, please have mercy upon him. Even though you've completely destroyed him, have mercy on him, on his soul, on his spirit, you know. And I think it wasn't just Hiranyakashipu either. I think it was like all of his little minions and everything. You know, I think it was like him and his whole crew were redeemed at the very end, you know. But I don't know if you want to go into your necklace right now, maybe real quick. Have we talked about these necklaces before?
I don't know if we have. This is the Nrsimhadev, half man, half lion incarnation.
Yeah, but also the
Oh
intestines.
yeah. Also the Nrsimhadev.
Yeah. I don't know if we've talked about them on the show. Have we?
Vitra. Maybe it represents the entrails of the demon father of Prahlad that were ripped out by the Lord. And in this mood, there are different moods that the heart can experience. The primary rasas we've talked about before, parental affection, you know, speaking on conjugal affection, that of a teacher, that of a friend, right? Awe. And then there are secondary moods that can kind of come up within those, and such as chivalry or humor or ghastliness, which is the mood that Nrsimhadev assumed. So therefore he's called Ugra Nrsimha. So in this mood, it's like the ultimate like horror scene. He's like ripping out the guts. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna wear this now. It's like, dang, that's gnarly, you know, it's super gnarly. But because he wears them, it becomes totally spiritualized. So my take on that is kind of just like, because this is representing that. And this has actually been worn by Nrsimha in Mayapur, the Ugra form. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, which is the form of him in his most ferocious state, the form of the Lord in his most ferocious state to eviscerate, yeah, the enemy of his beloved devotee Prahlad. And so those enemies within our own heart, we pray to Nrsimhadev to destroy, you know, and then to make our innards pure, in a sense, you could say like that.
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
like the ultimate protection. You
right.
know, like the
Then there's
the
that too. There's the inward, and then there's also the external. Yeah, protect me from external evils.
yeah. There's a prayer, the Narsinga Tattva, I think. I
Okay.
have it on my Spotify. I'll sometimes I'll just play it, like, you know, if I'm working or whatever, I'll just play it and just let it play. And it's a really good one. But yeah, there's like a whole prayer for
The
protection.
shields.
Yeah, like protect all sides of you
Yeah.
from the north, the east,
Kavacha.
south. Yeah, yes, yeah, everything. It's like it's like 15 minutes long. It's just
Yeah.
one little version that I found. I listen to it sometime.
Nice.
Wow, you talk about results too. Jai
Oh,
Shri Krishna.
yeah. Yeah.
That is like some real miracle stuff, you know. Like there's kirtan, which is miracle stuff, and then there's all these prayers and shlokas that you can memorize and mantras that you can memorize, and it's all like powerful. It's powerful stuff. It's like healing, protecting, you know, everything that you are gonna need. You know,
Yeah.
you need.
Again, it's all from meditation on the Lord, right? That's the source of all of this. Everything that we need and want, we're looking for, you know, like you're so beautifully saying, like a, a real spiritual tradition will give you all of these prayers, give you all the tools, the armor, weapons, if you want to think of it in those kind of terms. But these are all like subtle or spiritual things. Of course, it's all spiritual. Subtle could still mean material, but even still, like we're not just living on the spiritual plane in the sense like we also have life in the material and subtle realms, so we're also acting here. So it's not like it's not spiritual to ask the Lord for things on the material plane. It's just it depends on your consciousness. We're all asking God, every single living entity. Again, free will means, what are you asking the source for? What kind of interaction do you want to have with the energy? If it's, well, I want to be empowered as an instrument of God to spread goodwill and give protection and destroy ignorance. And it's like, okay, well, then you'll get his spiritual empowerment, and here are the prayers. Here's how you vibrate that. Here's how you like really take that into your consciousness. Like let these words, let these songs, these verses be instilled in you. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to Krishna's feet, right? Because all of these things are emanating from his feet. And the weapons of Nrsimhadev, they're there. The lotus flower, the sweetness of God is there.
You said that there was a lightning bolt?
Yeah, the thunderbolt reveals that meditation on his feet smashes to pieces the mountain of his devotees' karmic reactions to past sins. It also indicates that whoever holds on to his feet becomes as exalted as Lord Indra, who wields the thunderbolt. This mark also shows that the glories of Krishna's dynasties were established by his own grandson Vajranava. Okay, so the main point is the mountain of sins, that it's said that, okay, so like there's us and there's God, right? And so the soul can either turn away from God or towards God. And it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to turn towards God. Why am I not feeling like, and you're saying if I do that, then I'll feel like totally loved and accepted. And like, I won't have a need for anything, outside of that. But why don't I feel that then? I'm chanting Hare Krishna, why don't I feel that? It's because between you and God, there is a mountain of aham mameti, I and mine. And we've built up these concepts of I and mine, and on that basis, we have sinned, right? So that's what we mean by sinned, is you've missed the point. They say that's what sin means. You've missed the mark. You've missed the point. It's God isn't in the picture in your activity when you're thinking yourself the proprietor and the enjoyer of God's energies. You're actually the servant of God's energies. And because of that, the sin means, you've built up these impressions that are going to obscure your vision of God. And you have to traverse that. It's a mountain. Like you have to reap all of that. And it's a mountain. It's massive. It could take many, many lifetimes of embodied suffering. And you can kind of interpret that however you want. Some traditions say you'll burn eternally. Okay. Some traditions say that you will take birth in different wombs. There's different ways. The point is, you can't escape the signs of as you reap, so shall you sow. I'm sorry, as you sow, so shall you reap. Right.
Yeah.
So that mountain is there of sinful reactions, but when we take shelter of the Lord's feet, that mountain is smashed to smithereens, right? Like that. mentioned the swastika, I think that's a good thing to not just leave hanging.
Sure. Yeah. Let's get into that. Go ahead.
Okay.
By all means. Yeah.
What do we have, like 10 more minutes? What time do we get started?
Yeah, we actually do. We have exactly 10 more minutes actually right now.
Okay. Okay, so this, I feel like this is it's going to come up for people who come into Krishna consciousness. It's like, why do you guys have swastikas on your temples? And you know, just all over your culture, you'll see this symbol, you know. So it's very important to qualify that the swastika of the Vedic tradition and that of the Nazi movement are different. The Nazi movement actually obviously took the swastika along with other elements, I'm sure, from the Vedic cult. Actually, yeah, my godbrothers were talking about this a few weeks back, that Hitler was very influenced. Oh, I guess that's obvious. The Aryan race, right? That comes from Vedic culture, speaks about the Aryans. And that's another thing that will be a trigger for people when they read Prabhupada's books, especially the Bhagavad Gita, because there's a verse where Krishna is chastising Arjuna for acting like a non-Aryan. And he says, this weakness of heart is unbecoming of you who are an Aryan. So I think there's someone who has taken upon himself to write a book, cherry picking all of the statements in our literature and making this case that we're anti-Semitic, and which is just preposterous, because everything about our literature and our philosophy is that you're not your body. So Prabhupada explains Krishna's meaning that Aryan is a class of people who are civilized and who are properly utilizing this human form of life to realize God. It has nothing to do with your body. It has to do with your heart, your mind, I would say. So that is an Aryan, and non-Aryan just means that you're wasting your human life. It has nothing to do with your body. So these are distorted or perverted appropriations of Vedic heritage, which is universal. Veda just means knowledge. So the original culture, however, of the earth was Aryan, and then that Aryan culture got splintered, fragmented, and then distortions of that original culture got spread throughout the world. And now what we have is just a whole big hot mess, I think. But that whole big hot mess is being brought, back into the light. And what that being brought back into the light is auspiciousness, which is what the swastika represents. The original swastika, which is horizontal and vertical lines, not the diagonal and backwards ones, is actually, and it actually represents the pivoting of the Big Dipper around the pole star. And it represents the precession of the higher planets around Dhruvaloka, who's a pure devotee and who is like he's the highest planet. He reigns on the highest planet in the universe. Okay, it's a little far out.
I'm just letting you go with this because I just don't know enough about it, and I don't want to get into a mess at all. So I'm letting you handle this because
okay.
Obviously I've been a devotee long enough to see them on everywhere. Ancient temples, they're there's kurtas, they're everywhere.
I'm sure probably a swastika within arm's reach of me, But so like what does it mean?
Yeah.
Okay, like you said something about stars and like beings on higher planets and like precession, like what's uh means there is a light emanating from the spiritual worlds coming through the pure devotee of the Lord. As we've discussed, like the chakra manifests in your heart. When you become an instrument of God, God manifests through you. You know, you Muslims call those people prophets, right? And then the Christians get a big stink when they hear that Jesus is being called a prophet and anything less than God. And it's like, well, he's not being called less than God. You just don't understand that both things can be true at the same time. That someone can be on the same level qualitatively as God, but quantitatively it would be preposterous to call him God. That you're missing the point that God is manifesting in this world through his devotee. So Dhruva is pure devotee, one of the original um beings in the universe. And then the higher beings are circumambulating him. It means they recognize that this is the center point. This is like the hub of the world where the light is coming out. So the swastika represents that emanation of auspiciousness, that here the Lord is manifesting. And so we should also make our lives circular around him. That's my interpretation. It
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
Yeah. It's such a crazy thing to talk about now in this present age and the political climate that we're in America and everything, because it's too bad that history was literally perverted from, what was it, like 1930 or whatever
Mm.
onward, by one single party. One single political party caused so much havoc,
Well,
so many problems.
it it obviously was going on a lot longer. This was just a time that it manifested in a particular way. But you know what's interesting, Prabhu, is like we talk a lot about the Holocaust, but we don't talk a lot about many of the other genocides that were way more brutal. Like there was something about like the Dutch genocide in the Congo. Do you know anything about that? I've never heard of that. But
Uh,
they not only slaughtered, they tortured millions, like hundreds of millions, way more, hundreds of times more than the Holocaust. And they weren't torturing the Jews. I mean, obviously, to some extent, they weren't doing the things they were doing in the Congo. Hare
I
Krishna, why don't we talk about that? Why is it just the Jews that we talk about? It's like, you know, there's so
well,
much.
yeah,
Not that we're getting into conspiracy, but I'm just
right.
saying it's been going on. This thing like war has been going on a lot longer. You know.
Yes,
Yeah.
on this show we really try to talk about, like, we're always talking about like the long game, the long term, like the history of humanity from 5,000 years ago until now. And in that time, yes, there's been genocide after genocide, and it's a horrible thing no matter what. The It's just, people now are so like fast food, here it is, it's right now, it's right here,
Mm.
it's right now, that once you say, even if you say swastika, like alarm bells are going off in
Canceled.
somebody's head. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's important to acknowledge the fact that they took a beautiful symbol and perverted it, because that's kind of like, that kind of shows the demonic
Mm.
influence.
Mm.
And they
Yeah.
were like so into that, like they were just calling down black powers, the dark
Mm.
powers, like they were so all about doing sacrifices and like
Yeah.
worshiping Satan or whatever. They really were. It's strange how like I'm pretty sure that Hitler was literally like on the cover of Time magazine in what, like 1929 as Man of the Year, because yeah, it's a historical fact. You can Google it, you can look it up right now. Man of the Year. I think it was 1929 or 1930. Here's this young radical guy coming out of Germany with all these radical ideas. Oh wow, that's so
Mm,
like no one's ever done that before. Well,
mm.
in
Oops.
like 5 years, they
He'll be
whoops,
something, all right.
whoops, didn't see that. Didn't see that coming. Oh, damage control. So
Yeah.
I think that just the Holocaust is like what we always refer to. Well, it's what the teachers always refer to in the school systems because
Yeah.
it's like so recent history,
Yeah.
you know.
It's very
So
immediate in our consciousness. Even that is kind of changing, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're saying that it's like what it made me think is because people like this like very simple box reality, let's say, of just like I like, you know, my beef and potatoes, and whatever my New York Jets, and this is my world, this is how I like it, and I don't want to disturb. And like if I have a certain way of thinking about something like the Holocaust, then I'm like, that's cool with me. And if you start pushing those buttons, then you know. So the thing is, like, you have, however your orientation about that is, like, if you only accept this small version, and you say like you can't go beyond that, like to not be able to go beyond that, like this is our job here, like you and me, like what we're doing with this show, and like meaning like with our lives, is we're on this path of being a transcendentalist where we're refusing to get caught up in a small box account of what life is. It's like as soon as you do, as soon as you put a stopper on this is all that it is, and like even if it's this is God, you can't put a box around God, you know.
I've
So
been saying that for years, dude. I've been
you
saying
have been saying that.
and
It's,
stop trying to put God in a box. I've been saying that for years, you know.
yeah.
I mean, he is so like he's so much bigger. How our job
Okay.
is, yes, that is our job. Our job on this show, like, is like, how do I get closer to God, And that means you have to like unlock your brain and think about things in thousands of years in the past and thousands
Yeah.
of years in the
Prabhu,
future.
such a good point. Such an important point that it's like it doesn't seem like much. Like I was reflecting on this a little bit. I'm listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam now as I'm truck driving, which has been great. I can go through a whole chapter in a day, at least. I could do more if I wanted. And these stories that I'm hearing are from millions of years ago, you know? And it's like there was some point, it was a subtle point that just like this is like a radically different reality. Like the Bhagavatam is presenting something so radical. Like nowhere else do you get stories from more than 5,000 years ago,
Yeah.
you know? And so like what's happening is like this is telling the like original story of how it actually is. And Prabhupada has said, Prabhupada quotes Vyasadeva, who is the compiler of all of the Vedic scriptures, culminating in Srimad Bhagavatam, and he states, like, this is Shastra, this is divine inspired literature that basically you can say like this: God is telling us that this Srimad Bhagavatam will provide lights for the people in the age of Kali, in this age of confusion, wherein we're seeing, and it's just like there's a whole, we could go on for hours on this on this topic.
I know. I was
We
just
gotta
gonna
wrap it up.
say we are just
Uh,
completely over time too. We are definitely definitely over time right now. This is
but
what
it's
happens.
like this story, the story of life, of God, of who we are, we're like we're in the crossfire, and we don't even know. Neither side has the absolute truth. It's like you got to get over yourself, people. You
Yeah.
got to like take a deep breath, be like, maybe I'm part of the blind being led by the blind game, and I need to get real with myself and just be radically honest, take radical responsibility. I'm here in this world and I need to look within my own heart, and I need to do some real soul searching and come up with a truth that I can actually stand on, not just that, well, it probably is like this, and I'll figure it out after I die. No, like it's serious life. And anyway, yeah, these teachings will do that for you. They will stretch your mind, your rational mind, farther than it can go,
Yeah.
until you break through.
Yeah.
Um, it'll take you beyond, and a lot of people reject it for that. They say, well, this doesn't fit with the way that I know how I've learned from these other teachings. There are some contradictions, or like, how can you say that at the bottom of the universe there's a giant ocean and there's this four-armed dude lying on a snake with his feet being massaged by a goddess? Like, that's your worldview on top of a turtle and four elephants? You're saying that's what's underneath the world?
Yeah. I'm telling you that God is a cowherd boy who just plays with his friends all day and plays a flute and just pets cows and feeds them grass and hangs out in the field, and maybe they go and play hide and seek or run around, or yeah. Oh, and he's blue. That's what I believe.
That makes sense.
Hare Krishna. All right, Prabhu, we got to wrap it up. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much for the show today. Thank you, YouTube audience. Please like, subscribe, do all that great stuff. Thank you for listening to us and putting up with us for this long. And we plan to go on for many, many more episodes. Let's end the episode the way we always do, by chanting the Maha Mantra 3 times, shall we? All right.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
All right. Beautiful people. We love you. We will see you soon. Signing off. Haribo.